Mark 16 verse 1 reads, "When the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices, so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. And they were saying to one another, 'Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb?' And looking up, they saw that the stone had been rolled back. It was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe. And they were alarmed. And he said to them, 'Do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter that he's going before you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you.'" I want to talk about this morning, with the Lord's help in your prayers, graveyard conversations. Graveyard conversations. Beloved, conversations have a way of shaping us, warning us, and also encouraging us. Consider some of the places where fruitful conversation takes place. For some of us, we've encountered a conversation with a mentor in the warm, comforting context of an office or in their home. For some, we have received life-altering, changing information in a barbershop or a beauty shop. And we've taken that information, and that information has changed the trajectory of our lives. Many of us, we have conversations in the workplace that encourages us or informs us to do a better job as an employee. But consider with me, there are some places where we don't think meaningful conversations can take place. Many of us would never have a life-altering or life-enriching conversation in the graveyard. After all, graveyards are a place of unrestricted emotion. Graveyards have a way of opening the floodgates of our tears, and we are profusely crying, and we're always thinking about who we lost or what we lost, and rarely what we have gained. No one expects to have a good conversation in the cemetery. The cemetery is the depository of the unusable. The cemetery is the place where the hearse wheels roll and caskets are lowered down. No one really expects to have a strong, life-altering conversation in a cemetery. But here we hear the best news of all news of history in a graveyard. Here we have these women. These three women, they are going to the cemetery to see Jesus. And they have a conversation amongst themselves, and God, in his own wisdom, interrupts their conversation, and he begins to talk to them through an angel. This is the simple take-home truth this morning. God raising Jesus from the grave offers us hope and renewed purpose for all who have felt the sting of physical, emotional, and spiritual death. And this is the deed to do. Caution yourself, from being overwhelmed by past pain that you miss the opportunity of spiritual resurgence. I say it again. Caution yourself of being overwhelmed by past pain that you miss the opportunity for spiritual resurgence. And someone here can testify that you've had a lot of pain in your life, but the testimony of the resurrection is not only that God raised Jesus from the dead, but God can raise you from any dead situation. And who am I talking to that you found yourself surrounded by death? But the good news about Jesus Christ is he can raise you up. So I just want to walk through this story this morning. First thing we notice is they have a duty to fulfill. The text opens by giving us the names of these women: Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. These women are walking, notice, these women are walking still in the darkness of silent Saturday and early Sunday morning. They are walking to the tomb. They have a duty to fulfill because Jesus was crucified on Friday. Can you imagine the images that they still have in their head? They have the images of Roman soldiers putting a spear in his side. They see his back torn into shreds because he's been whipped with the cat of nine tails. They have the images of his body being baptized in his own blood. They have these images, and they are not going to an exciting place, but they are going to a place that reminds them of the reality that Jesus was assassinated by the Roman Empire. But still, they go toward the tomb. And the reason why they go to the tomb on Sunday is because when Jesus was crucified on Friday, the Passover was about to take place, so they could not properly embalm his body, so they had to wait for them to go on Sunday. And they said, we've seen Jesus serve so many other people, we just want to do this last act of service for him. And who am I talking to that you can recall all of the things that Christ has done in your life, and you've seen Christ work things out in others' lives? So every now and then you ought to want to have the spirit of these women that we've seen Jesus serve others. So every now and then you ought to want to serve him. That's why you came to church this morning and you put on your Sunday best, because God gave you the best that he had, and you got up this morning, so you said, Lord, I just want to tell you thank you and give you a little service for sending me the best that you had. But this is the tension, church. They are going to preserve a dead Jesus. Don't miss this. All they can remember of Jesus is a suffering Savior whose body had been mangled by violence. And all they are trying to do is preserve the Jesus that they had left. Don't miss that. Doesn't that sound like our life? Life has a way of taking so much from us. Life has a way of taking your confidence, rearranging your life, your marriage, your finances, and sometimes we find ourselves just trying to maintenance what we have left. And I know it's Resurrection Sunday, but you can't deal with the power of the resurrection until you deal with the gruesome death on Friday. Sometimes all we are doing is trying to maintenance what you have left. These women, they are intentional. They want to anoint Jesus, but also they were faced with a definite interference. These women, they are walking, and they are walking in the dark. And they raise a question: who shall roll the stone away? And I don't know about you, church. I know we read the scripture, but I think that's a justifiable question. Who shall roll the stone away? These women said, we're going to do something good, but there's so much in our way. And is there anyone here that can testify on resurrection that you mean to do good, but sometimes there's so much in between you and the good, and you saying, Lord, who's going to help me move these stones out of my life? Let me tell you, they're faced with the interference. They have a wall. So who shall roll the stone away? This tomb that Jesus has been buried in, there was a stone that was in front of it that sealed it. Church, don't miss this. It was a disc-shaped stone that rolled in front of the mouth of the tomb, and it was lowered or rolled into grooves to secure it. Usually it would take several men to move these types of stones. And these stones were only moved for when they buried people, or then when they did the secondary deposit of their bones. These women raised a question: who shall roll the stone away? Don't miss this. They're saying we need some help. That there's something, there is a physical barrier in between us and what we want to do for Christ. But this is the problem with the women's conversation. They were only concentrated on a stone, but they failed to remember that the Jews and the Romans had put a soldier out in front of the tomb to ensure that no one would come and steal the body of Jesus, because it would upset the equilibrium of the Roman Empire. You missed your shout. Let me tell you, graveyard conversation will only have you looking at one part of the picture, and you'll miss the big picture. And God's word for somebody is, sometimes there's more than just stones in your way. Sometimes there's soldiers as well. Who shall roll the stone away? I'm going somewhere, stay with me. But also there's the interference that they are weak. They're women. It's clear that it would take several men to remove a stone. All they're trying to do is do the good thing. All they're trying to do is to do the right thing. And can we be honest this morning? There are some circumstances in our lives that are so grand and so big, our strength is no match for it. And part of the resurrection reality is you have to be okay with confessing your weakness. I know we live in a world where we always want to talk about how strong we are and who we know and how independent we are. But the message of the resurrection is not that Jesus got up on his own, but his Father raised him up. And let me tell you, if Jesus needed his Father, how much more do you need somebody else to lift you up? That's a word for somebody. You need someone to lift you with the word of encouragement. You need someone to lift you with the hand of understanding. You need someone to lift you with a church that cares. These women said, we're weak and we can't do it. Can I tell you, I can echo the words of Paul. I am weak when I would do good. Evil is always present. I echo the sentiments of Paul. When I'm weak, that's when I'm strong. Then they raised, I want to go back to this question. They also had the interference of their words. Who shall roll the stone away. Just look at your neighbor, ask him, who shall roll the stone away? Listen to the tone and the tenor of these women. This phrase is in the imperfect tense. Literally, it means they were constantly asking among themselves. They kept asking the whole time they're walking, they're repeating this question. Mary, who shall roll the stone away? Salome, who shall roll the stone away? The mother, who shall roll the stone away? This is the thing about graveyard conversation, is it will always have you overwhelmed with what's the problem and never the solution. This is the shout. They were always asking the question of who will when they failed to look to who can. And does not that sound like our life? You spend all of your life looking at who will help you, who will love you, who will extend to you a helping hand, and oftentimes you block out who can, and God is saying, here I am, I'm here, but you're overwhelmed with who will. The words, who will roll the stone away? This is a simple word, church. We all have some kind of stone that can potentially impede our progress. Some of us, it's the stone of rejection. You've been rejected once and you've never bounced back. For someone, it's the stone of obstacles. Every time an obstacle is in your way, you're ready to be sidelined. For someone else, it's the stone that you create on your own. You're always inflicting yourself with pain. Maybe it's sin, whatever it is. We all have a stone. The sin of the women is they have the wrong tone on the wrong day. The tenor of these women is far from positive. Who will roll the stone away? And let me ask you, when it comes down to your life, what's the tenor of your life? Are you always saying things can never get better? Are you always the negative in the midst of positives? Do you always see dark clouds and never see sunshine? These women have a definite interference, but finally I want to close with this. They possess a spirit of continuation. It's clear these women are worried. We know that they are worried about the unnecessary. These women, they have questions and worry, yet they continue to keep walking. Don't miss it. That's the shout this morning. Imagine if these women would have stopped walking. What if they would have allowed their constant question of who will roll the stone away to sideline them? If these women would have stopped walking, they would have missed out on the greatest act of human history, or in biblical history. They kept on walking, and this is the shout. Half of the battles of life is you got to keep on walking. I know it's hard. I know you have questions. I know you have anxieties. The deck is stacked against you, but the word is get up in the morning and keep walking. Keep walking on your job. Keep walking in your marriage. Keep walking in your faith. Keep coming to church. You got to keep on walking, because this is the shout. When you keep on walking, you'll realize what you think that needs to be done is already been handled. The word is, when they kept on walking, they realized the stone had already been rolled away. And that's a word for somebody. You think you got to handle it, but God says if you keep moving your feet, you'll realize I'm taking care of the soldier and the stone. I wish I had a praying house. Is there anybody here that can testify it's already done? Can I tell you, that's the word about salvation. Salvation is not about what you can do, but salvation is what Christ has already done. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, you walking with God ain't about you.
It ain't about how perfect you are. It's not about you dotting every I and crossing every T. What you need in God is already done. You just got to realize it.
Oh, Lord, help us today. They kept on walking. And when they kept on walking, church, they had a visitation. The angel showed up. And let me tell you, when you keep walking with God, the angel said, be not afraid. And let me tell you, God will send you a message of peace when he's shown you something that you've never seen before. Because the word is, oftentimes when we see God work and we've never seen it done like that before, we get scared. So God says, let me send my messenger of peace to calm you. But then he also says there's also a declaration. The angel said, be not afraid. But then he tells them, he's not here. He has risen from the grave. Now, I'm just preaching the story today. He's not here. He says he's not here. Now wait a minute. We just shot on he got up. But you got to think about the place where he got up from. He got up from the grave. The grave is the depository of the unusable. The grave is always in the business of taking life and never giving life. And the angel says he got up from the thing that should have held him down. Can I be the angel this morning? I came to tell somebody that God can offer you resurgence even in dead places. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, God can lift you up from a dead place. But finally, I'm done today. But then he gave them a new vocation. He says, and since my son has risen, and let me tell you this, let me just give this to you. This ain't in my script, but let me tell you this. He says, come in, I'll show you where they laid him. Can I tell you something good today? God didn't remove the stone to let Jesus out. He removed the stone to let the women in. Can I tell you something? It's nothing about that Jesus couldn't get up. He could have walked through the stone. But he says, let me move the stone so I can leave them evidence that I got up like I said I would. Then he says, since you know that he has arisen from the dead, he says, now I want you to go tell my disciples and Peter. Tell them, tell my disciples, the ones that abandoned me. And that's the word about resurrection. We've all abandoned God at some time or another. But God has a word for grace. He says, I know you've been my disciple. I know you love me and you fled the scene when you should have stayed. But go tell my disciples. But then he says, and Peter. I'm in the Peter group. I can't talk for nobody else, but Peter was the one that said, Lord, I never mess up. I never turn my back on you. And Peter denied him 3 times. He says, go tell Peter, because I got a job for Peter. In a couple of days, I'm going to put him on to preach the sermon at Pentecost, and 3,000 souls are going to be saved. I'm talking to some Peters this morning that you've let God down, but God has a word for you that I got up, but not only that I got up, but I got your own program. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, go tell my disciple and Peter, look at these women. First, all their conversation was depression and despondency. But now they have a new conversation. They are no longer commentators of despondency, but now they are commentators of grace. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't know what's been in your mouth, but there's grace in my mouth. God bless you, New Hope. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I
once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. God bless you, New Hope. He rose from the grave. Is there anybody here know that he rose right early Sunday morning? Right early Sunday morning. He got up like he said he would. Touch 3 people and tell them he got up like he said he would, 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 and touch somebody else and say, neighbor, because he got up, I can get up. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear, all fear, all fear is gone. Do you know he lives? Shout yeah! He lives. You ask me how I know he lives. He lives within my heart. He lives. Salvation to impart. You ask me how I know he lives. He lives in my heart. I'm talking to somebody today. Today's a good day to change your conversation from graveyard talk to resurrection talk. Today, if you're here unsaved, unchurched, today is a good day to
You thought I would worship